Hey, if you are curious about Winsor and Newton Gouache, their colors, and you want to get the insights from my Winsor and Newton Gouache palette so that you don't make the same mistakes that I have, then this is the video for you. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs, and vlogs, and in this video, I will swatch out all the colors that I have, highlight my favorites, as well as the different considerations that I have gone through in doing this, and the colors that I won't replace. My hope is that this will then help you save money and give you a better insight into which colors may be a good fit for your palette. I will be touching on things like light fastness, as well as the personal things that I like to paint with, and really dissecting the palettes and the colors that I have at the moment. Light fastness are new to you and you want to know more about that, then I would recommend that you actually watch the watercolor video where I highlight all this information about pigments and consistency, which still applies to gouache, and then come back to this video and it will make more sense. And if you want to know how I store my gouache and the main colors in my palette, then be sure to check out this video where I talk about it more. As you may or may not know, I absolutely love Winsor and Newton Gouache. It is currently my favorite gouache, and I only say currently because I haven't tried out all gouaches out there, but for the moment I love the consistency, I love the opacity, and I love the way that it feels. As well as that, they are relatively affordable, very easily accessible in the UK, and they have a massive range of colors, especially in the UK. So these are all the kind of considerations that I take on board when looking at my gouache selection. Everything is going to be timestamped down below, and I've also left links in the description, so if you see colors that you like, be sure to check that out. Just to give you a bit of background, I initially started off with the introductory set by Winsor & Newton, which has 10 14mm tubes, like essentially the split primaries and then a few extras, a black, a white, a green, and a brown. And then from there, I started adding on my own extra colors based on what I was most intrigued by. And there wasn't much rhyme or reason when I was buying these colors, other than I kind of thought based on the tube that they looked like a good color. I don't recommend this strategy, and that is part of what prompted me to create this video, so that you would be able to just look at actual swatches and think it through a bit more than I did. As you can see, I have done some floral doodles, and the reason that I did that is so that we can paint over them and assess the opacity of the gouache. Now, in theory, all things being well, we should be able to kind of obscure the doodles completely, but we'll see and we'll take a look. And again, it kind of depends on how you use the colors. So this first color is primary yellow. It's included in the introductory set, and it has the pigments PY74 and PY138. Its light fastness is rated as not applicable, so I don't know if it's really good or really bad. It's a series 1 color, which basically means that it's less expensive, and series 4 is the most expensive in the range. And as you can see, it is not that opaque, but that is not uncommon for yellows in gouache. This is kind of my run-of-the-mill cool yellow, so a yellow that I go and use over and over and over again when mixing my greens. Then next we have permanent yellow deep, which is again another color that's included in the Winsor & Newton introductory set, which has 10 colors, and it has PY65 as the pigment. Its light fastness rated 2, which I think is very good, and it's again a series 1 color, which means on the cheaper end of the spectrum when compared to other colors in the Winsor & Newton range. It's a kind of orangey yellow, as you can see, so it's a lot warmer than the other yellow, and I guess it's the other element of a split primary. So we have a cool yellow and a warm yellow. Following that, we have yellow ochre, which is again another color included in the introductory set. It is PY42, light fastness rated 1, which is excellent, and it's again a series 1 color. Next is a new addition, and this is Naples Yellow, which has PW6 and PBR24. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent, and again a series 1, so the cheapest of the range. And I think in part I was tempted by this color because I really liked it in a watercolor in Roman Schmall. It's one of the favorites that was highlighted by you guys over and over again, and I'll link that video for you. So I kind of thought, okay, well, I like the color in watercolor, let me get a similar color in gouache, and I really enjoyed it. Now, speaking of having a good time, if you are enjoying this video and finding it useful, then don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing, as it's a free way that makes a massive difference difference to me and to this channel, so thank you in advance. Then we go on to the reds, and the reds is a little bit trickier because this is where the fugitive colors come in. But first we have Spectrum Red, which is again a part of the introductory set. It has PBR 25 and PR 170. It's light fastness rated 2, which is very good, and it is a series 1 color. It's a nice warm red for those who really like mixing oranges, but I don't tend to use it that often unless I'm kind of calming down my greens. Next we have Primary Red, which is again a color that's in the introductory set. It is PR 170. It's rated moderately durable. Don't really know what that means, and again it's a series 1 color, and I really like this color because I tend to use it quite a lot for mixing my purple, so it's kind of my purpley red if you like. But this whole swatching session kind of led me down a path to try and find a better cool red that perhaps would be in the same price range but last longer, so be better than moderately durable. However, before I did this, I picked out a few random colors, one of which was magenta, which is a PR 173 and PV2. It is a fugitive color, so it will fade if exposed to light, and it's a series 2 color, so slightly more expensive than the other colors we've seen thus far. But it just looked so nice on the tube, and I really wanted bright pinkish looking reds, and I felt like this would be one of them, and I was not disappointed. It is so beautiful, so bright, so clearly fugitive. But I really like it and the mixes that I'm able to do with it. Next we have Quinacridone Magenta, which is PR 122. It's rated as permanent, so it doesn't have a formal ASTM light fastness rating, and if all of this isn't quite making sense, I've created a video highlighting what all these terms like light fastness and opacity and everything else means, and I'll link that down below for you. It's a series 3 color, so it's more expensive than the colors that we have seen thus far, and it's kind of like a less fluorescent version of the magenta that we just looked at. And again, really beautiful color, wonderful for mixes, and actually one of my current staple go-tos in my Stay Wet palette. Next is another new addition, and I cannot explain why I wanted this color. And if you've seen my latest art haul, you will have seen that I've bought it in gouache, I've bought it in watercolor, I've bought it across brands. I know it's fugitive, and that is Opera Pink. It's a series 2 color, and I just really wanted this really bright fluorescent playful pink. I don't quite know how I'm going to incorporate it into my art, but I was really excited to try. So yeah, this is Opera Pink. Next we have Pale Rose Blush. This has PR9, PO72, PY42 and PW6. It's rated as permanent, so again doesn't have a formal ASTM rating, and it's a series 1 color. And I just really like how gentle and almost like romantic this color is. I just thought that it would make beautiful florals, beautiful backgrounds, and can also be incorporated in landscapes. So a new addition, but one that I am very much enjoying. And can we just take a moment to appreciate like how opaque it is and how beautifully flat it's drying? Next we have Burnt Sienna, which is PR 101. It's light fastness rated 1, which is excellent, and it's a series 1 color. Then following that we have Burnt Umber, which is PBR 7 and PY42. It's again light fastness, excellent, and it's a series 1 color. And both of these browns are colors that I added on myself because I just feel like they are so useful when it comes to painting landscapes, at least the kind of landscapes that I like painting. And oddly enough, they weren't included in the introductory set, so if you find that you like having browns or that you create browns quite a lot, then they may be colors that you want to invest in. I find that for me, the Burnt Umber especially is one that I use over and over and over again. Next, we move on to the purples and to the blues, which I absolutely love. The first being Winsor Violet or Dioxazine Violet, which has PV23. It's light fastness 2, which is very good, and it's a series 3 color. It's just a really beautiful violet purpley color, and although it looks more blue leaning when it's wet, when it dries it actually leans a little bit more red. Then next we have Spectrum Violet, which is PV3, so by the nature of it, it is fugitive, which means it will fade, and it's a series 1 color, and this is more of a bluey purple. Then following that, we have Winsor Blue, and this is again another new addition. It's PB15, which is a phthalo color. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent, and it's a series 3 color. So again, a little bit more on the expensive side, but it's a really nice kind of staple sky blue, like a darker version of a blue that I'm going to show you in a second. Then next we have Prussian Blue, which is PB27. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent, series 1 color, and I love this blue. I love the depth of the blue. I love what it looks like. I love when I mix with it. I love everything apart from the way that it dries in my Stay Wet palette. I cannot explain why. Even though my other colors will be fine, the Prussian Blue just dries out, and it's then very difficult for me to get back to the consistency that I like. Even if I add gum arabic, even if I add water, it can just be quite a challenge. And after a while, even from the tube, it just feels harder than all the other gouaches that I have. Now, I really like the color, and I haven't been able to find a replacement, so I still use it. If I'm mixing it with other gouache, it will work perfectly. It is opaque enough that I can use it despite having to water it down quite a lot, so it's something that I am currently managing with. However, that is my one bugbear when it comes to the Prussian Blue. The only other consideration with Prussian Blue, which is not something I have experienced myself, but I know can happen with this pigment, is that it can actually change color or fade when in sunlight and then go back to a normal color or slightly lighter version of the original color when exposed to darkness for a prolonged period of time. So although it's technically excellent light fastness, it does change in light. So in the search of an alternative, I also got the indigo, which we're looking at here. And this is PB15, PBK6 and PB29. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent. And it's a series 1 color. And it's a nice blue, but it's no Prussian blue. It's not as like deep and dark as a Prussian blue. And I think that's because of the array of different blues that are mixed within it. Following that, we have Ultramarine, which is a staple. It is PB29, light fastness 1, which is excellent, series 1. And this is a color that comes with the introductory set. So it's almost like the cool purpley blue that's included in the split primary that you get when you get the intro set with Winsor and Newton. Then we have Primary Blue, which is PB15. It's light fastness 1 and series 1. And it's very similar to the Winsor Blue, which is above it. It's almost like a lighter version of the Winsor Blue that's above it, and that would make sense because they are similar. Then we have Cobalt Turquoise Light. This is hands down the most expensive gouache that I own, and it is PG50, light fastness 1, and it's a series 4 color. And I got it because I really love the color. It is a color that I also have in my Stay Wet palette, as you can see. Would I buy it again? It's tricky because it's so expensive. But it's a nice color to have, especially if you like painting like ocean scenes. Then what I'm swatching here is the permanent green middle, which is included in the intro set. It is PG7, PY3 and PY74. It's light fastness 2 and it's a series 2 color. And yeah, I don't tend to use greens that often. I tend to mix my own, but it's a nice green. Following that, we have Ivory Black, which is again another color in the intro set. It's PBK9, light fastness 1. Excellent, and it's a series 1 color. Then we have Zinc White. This is again included in the intro set. It's PW5, light fastness 1 and series 1. And I just wanted to illustrate the opacity of the whites that are available, because there are actually 2 whites. The other one being permanent white, sometimes referred to as titanium white, and it's PW6. It's light fastness 1 and series 1 color. I think that the best way that I can describe the difference for me personally when comparing the Zinc White with the permanent white is that the permanent white or titanium white is really good for highlights. It just feels like a bit of a stronger white, whereas the Zinc White I tend to find a little bit more subtle, which means that it leans itself quite nicely for mixing with colors, so to try and make them a bit more pastel. That being said, I am not overly passionate over one over the other. I think if I had to pick, I would probably pick the permanent white because I like adding highlights and I feel like I can do that better. And as you can see, you're still able to get really nice mixes. You'll just need less white. That being said, the zinc white comes with the intro set, and I think it's an acceptable white. So it's up to you, and it's up to like personal preference. In this instance, with the swatches that I'm doing, I am mixing the purple with the zinc white on the left, and then with the permanent white on the right. So these are all the colors in my current gouache collection. Now, as I mentioned, this video prompted some more, so I actually ended up getting some more colors that I'm going to show you in a second. But I just wanted to highlight that the colors I have in my main Stay Wet palette that I use most often are currently primary yellow, permanent yellow deep, yellow ochre, spectrum red, primary red, quin magenta, burnt sienna, burnt umber, Winsor Dioxazine Violet, which is a relatively new addition. I swapped out my ivory black to add that purple instead. And then Prussian blue, ultramarine, primary blue, cobalt turquoise light, and permanent green middle, as well as 2 slots of zinc white / permanent white, just all the whites mixed together. All the colours with the asterisks next to their names are the colours that come with the Winsor and Newton introductory set of 10. I tend to really like painting landscapes using gouache, but I wanted to try experimenting by actually painting florals and incorporating the newer colors that I had got. So that's the Naples yellow, the pale rose blush, as well as the spectrum violet, to kind of create this really bright and fun piece. And then following that, I was like, hey, I might as well go for it. And I started adding pencils and line works, and I just really enjoyed the process. But as well as highlighting my gouache selection by swatching it out, I wanted to also highlight some of the things that I since then have thought about that I would probably do differently if I knew then what I know now, because a lot of the colors that I bought while I was quite new to gouache, and seeing them all swatched out brought a new perspective which I want to share with you. One of the things was I was considering lightfastness versus cost. So what I actually did is created a chart or a visual representation to just analyze the colors that I actually had. So I divided my page into sections, and at the top is excellent light fastness, moving all the way down towards fugitive light fastness, whereas at the left is the cheapest or series 1 gouache colors, and towards the right is the most expensive or series 4 gouache colors. So in theory, the top left are excellent light fastness with the best value for money because they're series 1, whereas the bottom right are the colors that are more fugitive but also more expensive. And based on that, I could see that I was really missing some good light fast affordable yellows, as well as good light fast affordable red. In theory, I'm also missing a light fast purple, but really and truly, if I could get a good quality cool purplish red, then I would be able to mix it myself, because the blues for the most part are excellent light fastness and very affordable. So just looking at this, it made me think about my palette differently, especially in the future when I will change my current 16 palette setup. It just had me thinking about the colors that I would want to include in a different way. So I made a quick note of different yellows and different reds that are actually light fast, and put them in a respective series, even if I didn't have them, just so that I could have a better idea of what colors were out there. And from there, I then went to the shop. This is probably the most organized I've ever been when going shopping for art supplies, but I really wanted to narrow the scope. So I went for a nice cool yellow and a nice cool red, and I actually ended up finding 2 cool yellows, completely different price points, but I bought both so that I could compare them and advise you on if there is a significant difference, so that you can make that decisions for yourself. So in terms of comparing the yellows, the first one that I'm going to swatch out is the primary yellow, which we've already highlighted comes in the introductory set. It has PY74 and PY138. Its light fastness is rated as not applicable, and that is why I wanted to see if I could find a version of a yellow that would be nice and cool, affordable, but also have a rated light fastness. The next color that I found is the lemon yellow, which is PY3. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent, and it's a series 1 color, which is the same series as the primary yellow. And to me, this is an even cooler yellow, so it's an even closer to green yellow. Really, really nice. And the next we have cadmium lemon, which is PY35. It's light fastness 1, and it is a series 4 color, so one of the most expensive in the Winsor and Newton range. And again, it's even cooler than the lemon yellow above. Now I want you to observe this for yourself and then decide for yourself whether you feel like the difference in cost is warranted. Currently, the primary yellow and the lemon yellow cost £5 each, whereas the cadmium lemon costs £8.70. Next was the search for the new cool red. So the cool red that I am currently swatching is the primary red, and it's PR170, and that's what's described as moderately durable, which inspires absolutely no confidence. It is a series 1 color, and the alternative that I found is permanent rose, which is PV19. It's light fastness 1, which is excellent, and it's a series 3 color. So unfortunately, I couldn't find a red that was a cool red, more affordable, and also excellent light fastness, and this was the closest compromise I could come up with. So I think that the intro set is a good set to start off with, and there's also a split primary set that has 6 squash colors, which is good to start off with. But if I wanted to make it even smaller and start with 4 essential colors, there would be lemon yellow, ultramarine, and permanent rose, and then I would add in a white, whether it be zinc white or more likely a titanium white. And I think that that would give me a good range of light fast colors, which I would be able to mix the kind of colors that I like, and that's green and purples primarily, to create both florals but also landscapes. And if from there I had to add another color, it would be burnt umber, and again that's because I love painting landscapes. Now, the discussion and conversations around light fastness, how important is it, and especially when it comes to gouache, which wasn't traditionally expected to be light fast, how much importance should we bear to it? And where I kind of stand on this point at the moment is that I am okay with things not necessarily being light fast. Like, I'm open to buying fugitive colors. However, for me, it doesn't necessarily make much sense to buy really expensive fugitive colors that perhaps will fade. And if there is a color that's quite similar, that is light fast, that is around the same price point or even cheaper, then I would probably consider going for the more light fast option, an option that I know I can be a little bit more relaxed about it not fading. So a good example of that would be the cadmium lemon versus the lemon yellow. For me personally, I'm happy with the lemon yellow, and I'm also happy about the fact that it's £3.70 cheaper. So that would be the one that I would kind of go for. It's also made me, like, this entire chart has also kind of made me reevaluate a little bit of the colors that I got that are quite similar, and that is, I think, one of the key benefits of swatching out your colors. So for example, when it comes to the magenta like colors, I would probably not get another magenta and instead stick with the quinacridone magenta, and if I want something that's a little bit brighter, then I would also use the opera pink. So although it's fugitive, I just find that the magenta lies between these two, so I don't need to have all 3. Although I really like Winsor blue, I accept that I do not need 5 blues in my palette, so that would probably be the one that I would not buy again, especially because it's a series 3 color. I am still in 2 minds about the Prussian blue, and if I can find another blue that can replace it, or if I can fall in love with the indigo, then that might be a replacement for me, purely because of the texture. I really like Spectrum Violet, but I probably wouldn't get that again just because it is fugitive, and I think that Winsor Violet, which is light fastness good, is a nice alternative, and also that I can mix really nice purples myself using the permanent rose and ultramarine or indigo or Prussian blue. So taking a look at all the colors that I have, swatching them out, and I guess being a little bit more analytical and methodical about what I want to get out of the paints and the colors that I want to use and the subjects that I want to paint has just been so useful. And I actually recommend that you try and do something similar. So just think about what you want to create, what is going to be helpful, and what matters to you most. Is it light fastness? Is it the color itself? And is it its mixing capability? And then kind of create a palette based on that. I would also recommend having a look at different swatches as opposed to just looking at the colors on the tubes like I was doing, because the colors on the tubes are not accurate at all. And yeah, watching swatching videos can also be helpful, especially if you know that you want to get certain colors. So I hope that you have enjoyed taking this closer look at my palette. If you are still watching, then you are most definitely a real MVP, and I really, really, really appreciate you. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me what your favorite gouache brand is. If you love gouache as much as I do, and if you want to see it in action, then definitely be sure to check out this next video where I painted with gouache for 10 hours and created some lovely art that I still love till this day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.